Hi, this is Ben from Island Computers. I'm just going to recap the system that I purchased recently and just go through some of the choices that I made and just make sure everyone's purchasing the right things, basically. So my general suggestion would be to use someone like ScorpTech, PC Case Gear, MSY or UMart. ScorpTech and PC Case Gear are probably some of the most helpful websites because they have their PC building application, which is a good one. I suggest shying away from Amazon website because it's just not very easy to navigate. You have to know exactly what you're looking for and search for it, and then it's just it's a very old-fashioned website and it's very unhelpful to use. Even eBay is easier to use than Amazon, and generally the prices aren't that much better. In some cases they're more expensive, and the product is not available in Australia. It's going to be shipped from America, so what's the point? So this is the premise behind me doing videos on YouTube and doing tech videos, as well as obviously I realise that there's Tech Yes City and that there's Hardware Unboxed in Australia, although both of those use American dollars a lot of the time, and I've not been too happy about that. I think there's room for someone to do videos to Australians in Australian dollars, and I realise the irony of that since I have an English accent, but I'm an Australian. So yeah, anyway, beside the by, the guy from Hardware Unboxed is obviously Australian and he lives out in Gippsland, but his prime target is America, so he does all of his stuff in dollars, and then it's only an afterthought to put Australian dollars in there. Tech Yes City is guilty of doing the same. So my premise is to do stuff in Australian dollars all the time. All the time it'll always be Australian dollars as the first currency, American dollars after that if we really need it. But to be honest, we're all aware of how much we get screwed for prices and how much tax we have. America has about 10% tax. I wish I had that much. I wish it was that low. They're spoiled for choice on prices and things like that. So I can understand people's perspective trying to buy stuff from Amazon, but then you've obviously got to wait for the shipping. You might be waiting 4 weeks for something to turn up. If you're trying to build a system and you're trying to build it now, then you have to use Australian retailers, and yeah, you pay a bit more, but then you can also scrounge around to see if you can find stuff on eBay, the same product on there. No offense to ScorpTech and the other retailers, I do find that ScorpTech's the most expensive in Australia, and I can sometimes find parts elsewhere. The reason that I use ScorpTech though is because, and this is the same for PC Case Gear, is they build the system for you. So if you choose everything that you want in that system, and there will be key components that they will require you to choose, if they build it for you, if anything goes wrong with a part, they can replace it straight away. And if that part's not available, then they give you a call and they say, hey, we don't have any more of these particular graphics cards. Would you like to try the one from ASUS or MSY or EVGA instead? That's the very good thing about getting someone else to build your system. I mean, obviously, if you want to build your own system, then you have to go and buy all the parts, take it home, put it together. And if anything goes wrong, then you've got to go back there and get a replacement part, which funnily enough happened with my system when I built it. The graphics card that I chose was an ASUS 5700, not the XT. And when I installed it in the car, into the machine in the end, it basically ran at about 100 degrees. It was so hot it burnt the tips of my fingers when I tried to take it out, and I almost dropped it. In fact, it landed on my feet and then started burning the edges of my feet as well. Literally so hot I could have boiled an egg on it, or fried an egg, sorry. And then there's the replacement card that came, which was exactly the same. Same thing happened. It was an absolute furnace. So I was getting crashing, memory errors, freezing. I literally wouldn't even be able to get past the login screen. It would be like 2 or 3 seconds, and then blip, it would just freeze. Interestingly enough, when I was searching through for graphics cards, in the first time I tried to do this video, the 5700 is no longer available for ASUS Could it be that there was a problem with it and that's why they've removed it? Just a thought. Okay, so one of the things that you can do with ScorpTech is to create your own PC. So you basically just put together the parts that you want. I'm logged out at the moment. I do actually have a login. I am a reseller for ScorpTech, but it's only a small amount of money that I get off. Every now and then there might be a really good deal, but you know, you're looking at $600 or something, and then they'll give you $15 off or whatever. So there are a few perks for it, but if someone's building a system themselves, then they're obviously not going to have that benefit. So I've logged myself out, which is up here, and I'm just going to go through the build your own computer system. Now, the one thing I need to do on this is make sure that we actually do this all pretty quickly, preferably in one take, because the last time I did it, I was having issues with my mic, and by the time I came back, the card had vanished and all the stuff that I'd put in there was gone. So there we go, that video completely gone. But anyway, the audio quality was terrible, so I'm going to do that again. Okay, so CPU, I'm not even going to touch Intel. I didn't want to do it. I was very keen to try the new AMD processors, so I chose the 3600. I think Intel can go to hell, basically. I think they've really screwed the market, and they've wallowed in their own magnificence for way too long. Sorry, Intel, but you suck. AMD has really given you a right kick in the nuts. So I went for the 3600, and I went for that. It didn't go for the 3600X because of, well, price for starters. It was $80 extra for the 3600X, and it's only, say, a 5% increase in the performance. So I chose not to get it. Maybe I could have got it if hadn't got the Antec fans, or if I'd chose more wisely with my RAM, which I'll talk about later. Then yeah, I probably could have gone for that slightly higher powered CPU. But every video review that I'd seen said it's not worth it. Not worth the money, and even that was from you know, some very reputable YouTubers in the US that said it's not worth it. So the motherboard, God, so many motherboards. I mean, where do you start? Really, the best thing you can do is just know your model numbers of the motherboards. The rest is mostly it's like buying a bottle of wine. You can choose a Pinot Gris, and then you just choose which company it is. I mean, obviously they're going to be different in flavor most of the time, but it's technically the same grape, you know what I mean? The same sort of beer, you know, with ales or lager, whatever, Pilsner. Just take your pick. I mean, I know that's probably the worst analogy ever, because beers are very different, but in a lot of cases. But anyway, the model I chose was the B450. I didn't want to go for the X570 because money. Again, this is a build that's around the $1,500 mark. I didn't want to go too far above that, and for Australian dollars, that's not much, really. I mean, the $1,000 system that Jay's 2 cents just put together had some pretty good stuff in it. It was fairly similar to mine. The only difference is the processor. He went for the 2700X, but unfortunately you can't seem to find that here anymore. So anyway, I digress. The one I chose was the Aorus Elite. I'm not sure why the Aorus Pro is, I don't know, they're both the same price, but that's got a discount on it at the moment. But I didn't choose that one. Yeah, I did. I did choose the Pro. Whoops. Okay, well, there you go. Chose the Pro, so that's going on the system. Next up, we'll go memory. And I went for course. Frames are dropped again. Go for memory. I'll go for Corsair, DDR4 obviously, and 2 8GB sticks. I couldn't afford to go for 32. Don't technically need it at this stage. And what I chose was the RGB, so Vengeance RGB Pro, and I originally was thinking of going for the 266, but if you look at the prices here, 266 is 149 and the 3200 is 149. So there you go, 149. Better timings, and it's the same component. The only issue was that I was having a few issues with it being 3200 and the the XMP profile seemed to be causing some memory errors, so I ended up having to drop it back to 2833, I think, and that's been more stable. So just be aware of that. Okay, SSD, well, I already had it. I already had an NVMe, a Samsung 256 NVMe. I've already got 2 hard drives, a 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda, which holds most of my data, my now defunct music collection because I use Spotify, but videos, music, TV shows, that sort of stuff. Basically all the storage, my documents, most of my documents folders. So I don't need either of those components, and Scorptech were nice enough to just say, yeah, no worries, don't worry about it, because I'm buying the components on their own. If I'd have bought it as a system, I would have had to have put at least 1 drive in there. So be aware of that. If you already have your own SSDs, then you're going to have to put one in if you get them to build it for you. So in this case, we'll go to the graphics card. Now, as I said, I originally went for the 5700, but as you can see on this list, there's the RX 5700. The Asus is which is the reference card, not one of the aftermarkets. The reference card is not there anymore. So I wonder, there were so many complaints on the internet. I'm pretty sure that yeah, they had a problem with the card and they had to pull it. Well, there you go. Anyway, I managed to score a free game out of it, so that's all right. So go back. In the end, I ended up getting it replaced with a RTX 2060. Again, I couldn't afford the 2070s, and the 2060 Super was only just out, so I ended up getting a 2060 Pro gaming overclock. There we go, this one, the Gigabyte RTX 2060. Yep, that's the one. Is that the one? It's got the grey bits. No, mine doesn't have grey bits. Oh no, that's the one. Sorry, I could always check Specky. Yeah, $600, so that's a lot for me. That really is a lot. Anyways, bear in mind that when you're purchasing your system, the graphics card is probably going to take up about 50% of the cost of the entire system, or thereabouts. It's certainly a big chunk of your cash going to that graphics card. You want to make it a good one. You could go for a lower card. Originally, my build was going to have the RX 590, the gold edition, but I was persuaded to upgrade to the 5700. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't, but then again, this was a good stepping stone to going to the RTX 2060, so I ended up going back to Nvidia, which was a shame, because I did want to go for mostly AMD components, at least the CPU and the graphics card, but oh well, never mind. It didn't work, it wasn't compatible, whatever the problem was. Definitely didn't work in my rig, and I was very lucky for it not to destroy my rig, so I'm happy to go back to the RTX to Nvidia, and it's a very good card, and it plays all games, just smashes it. It's fantastic. Okay, so no SSD, no hard drive. The power supply, well, this is interesting. I mean, obviously most people tell you the power supply should be pretty beefy. Yes, it should. However, don't go overboard. You know, as I've heard other YouTubers say, make sure that you've got a powerful enough power supply to match your graphics card. So if you're going for a 2080 Super, you definitely want something around 900 or more watts to be able to cover that, plus the CPU. I mean, the CPU can draw a lot. The original CPU I wanted to get, or even the 3600X, has a lot higher wattage requirement than the one that I've got, and the TDP is higher as well. But generally I would say either go for the platinum or the gold, depending on the price. I mean, that's it. You know, at the end of the day, it's your price budget. It's your budget, how much you're going to spend. So for me, I went for a between the 650 and the 750 band of power supplies. And previously I've had Antec power supplies, I've had Cooler Master power supplies, I've had a few different ones, Zalman back in the day. And what I ended up choosing was for the price bracket, there was a Silverstone Strider that was excellent. No, Silverstone, not Silverstone Strider, I don't think. Let's have a look. So there's so many power supplies. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the same thing. You just get bogged down. Sometimes it's just better to know a brand or to be able to choose the one that has the most ratings on it. But this is what I chose in the end. It was a Silverstone Strider, completely modular, has a decent fan in it. It's 80 gold, 80 plus gold, and yeah, it's great. So there we go. Add that to the system. Now the case. So a bit like your graphics card and the motherboard, the cases there are so many to choose from. For my particular build, I'm choosing ATX because I have the room under my desk, but obviously bear that in mind. You might have to get yourself a small case, you know, something like that, or a small form factor, but just be careful because a lot of the components will then have problems. Generally, if you're buying a PC, you should get a full ATX case, so quite a big one. It's really not helpful trying to do, you know, sizes there. You know, show you something there. Okay, so there are ridiculous amounts of cases. So the first thing we'll do is, in my case, this was an RGB themed build. I wanted to be able to do a proper rainbow puke when I was doing these videos. So I'll choose tempered glass for starters because we want to be able to see the insides. Then we do RGB, and that really cuts it down. Power supply included. Well, there's only one that is included, so we'll forget about that. We'll choose black in this case, and then you can see there's still hundreds in, you know, well, maybe not hundreds, but there's certainly quite a lot, and a lot of them come with strips of RGB, or they come with lots of fans. This one is out of stock, but look at that, you get 4 RGB fans with it, allegedly. Just be careful, just make sure. Yeah, 420mm ARGB fans pre-installed. Nice, that's pretty cool. No controller though. So that's not great. You might find yourself having to buy a controller. Right, so the one I chose was this puppy, the Antec Prizm Dark Avenger case. I'm pretty happy with it. Oh, it's over my, yeah, you can see, I'll try and lean over, but you can't, you can see it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It has the strips at the front, which are RGB. They obviously go into the controller, which is included. And there's an LED button on the top. There's one RGB light that goes with it, and there's a standard fan with light that goes with it, and a standard fan on the back. Standard fan was noisy and didn't like it, so I took that out and actually put an Antec True Quiet that I had from my old case in instead. So it's a pretty cool case. I mean, I know that Jay's 2 cents said, you know, at the end of the day, it's a case, it's something to put your components into. However, you know, if you've got a little bit of money left over, you want to maybe find something that's pretty good. And look, this is only 125 bucks. For that kind of case, that's awesome. And it's a good case. It really it looks the business. So let's add that to the cart. How are we doing? Obviously, the last thing we want to choose is the operating system. Don't go Pro, Windows 10 Pro. You can actually get it for free through the Microsoft Update system. So just get Home. It's got to be 64-bit, obviously. No one has 32-bit these days, or if they do, they're silly to install 32. Don't know why you would, because it's backwards compatible. So anyway, that's it. That's here. No Linux or anything, because that's free. So you have to add that to the system. You can't just buy it on your own. Well, if you're just buying the components and you're not getting the system put together, then yeah, you could get your own copy if you want to from wherever. I'll give a sponsorship link below if I can. So that's it. In this case, for me at least, there was no SSD or no hard drive. But for the sake of that, we'll go and choose what we're going to get. So no contest at all. I know there's a lot of competition out there, but still no contest. Samsung. Go Samsung, go NVMe, and we'll just go to Samsung straight away. Now, do you want to go 128? No, you'll run out of space. So in this case, I would highly recommend that you go for a 256 minimum for your SSD. There are some issues that you can run into. Obviously, if you're installing games, some of them can be massive. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, for example, is 140 gig. That's just ridiculous. So you'll be trying to install that on a separate drive. Now, interestingly enough, Jay said in his build that there didn't seem to be much difference in the performance time between an SSD and a hard drive, and even an NVMe and an SSD, SATA SSD. I'd really be interested to see those stats, because if I try and run, say, The Witcher 3 on a normal hard drive, it takes about 2-3 minutes to even load to the main screen. But then on an SSD, I can literally just tap space to go straight to the main menu, or just use the developer options to skip the intro completely, and I'm there. So yeah, it seems a bit strange for him to be able to say that. Certainly things like Battlefield 4, if I'm trying to load that on a hard drive, it'll take about 5 minutes to connect, and then usually Punkbuster kicks in and boots you off anyway for some stupid reason. That's just Punkbuster for you. It's a pile of junk. Always was. So for example, in this case, we'll put a 250 SSD in there, and then we'll put a hard drive on as a backup. Now, yeah, best option would be Seagate. So we'll just go for a normal one. You could go Western Digital, but they tend to be quite noisy, and you don't get as good value for money. They can be quicker, or allegedly last longer, but I haven't noticed any difference between them, to be honest. Now in this case, maybe we just go for 1 terabyte. 2 terabyte. You need your data. Ooh. So look at that price. $2,000. Wow. That's not what I spent. So remove the SSD. Remove the hard drive. I guess maybe in the end I did spend that much. Or I certainly did, because I had components that I purchased already. So technically it ends up being a $2,000 machine. Oh well. Now, cooling, yes. So the other cooling that I did do was buy a fan kit. So case fans. Mustn't forget about that. So I got Corsair because, oh no, I got Antec because I'd already bought Antec. I didn't get CPU cooling. I don't need it because I bought an AMD Prizm cooler for an 2700X off eBay and installed that instead of the Spectre that comes free with the CPU. Okay, so there we go. That's the pack of fans that I bought, which took me an eternity to install and get ready, get sorted out. I ended up getting some silicon feet instead. So instead of putting screws in on the fans, you use silicon feet, and then I snipped off the ends to stop them from interfering with the magnetic filters. And yeah, it looks really good, and it does actually make a difference with the volume of the fans, with the vibration, especially when they're up a bit higher. But generally I have mine set to quiet. You may be able to hear my CPU or machine going at the moment, so there's a little bit of noise going on, but that's because I've had to close the windows to do this video because of external noise, and it's now getting a bit warm in here. So there we go. These fans are quite nice, but to be honest, with RGB it's up to you what you choose. Some of them go all the way through the middle, and some of them just go around the outside. So these are just a ring of lights, and presently I'm rocking a red theme, just red. That's it. Okay, cool. So that's basically everything. So yeah, in the end it was an $1,800 build. Oops. Yeah, $2,000. We're going to call it a $2,000 build. But for that, look at what you get. You get a fantastic CPU. Oh my God. For that you get a fantastic CPU. Now if I go back and have a look at the other 3600X, what's the price difference? So now it's only another $60 to get the 3600X, but at the time it was another $90 to get that one. So yeah, that makes a difference, especially if you're on a tight budget. But instead of getting those RGB fans, forget them, go for the other CPU. $60 well spent, probably. And you get Borderlands 3 for it as well, or Outer Worlds. So pretty good game. They love throwing in their games or their Xbox subscriptions, don't they, these days, which is nice. I got a 3-month Xbox subscription, so I've been playing Metro Exodus. Looks great, so glitchy. And terrible voice acting. It's just, I don't think I'm going to finish it. But oh well, there we go. So there's my system. 1843 altogether, without my discounts and things like that. So it'd probably be about $1,800, I think, with my discounts. Cool. All right, job done. Ben from Island Computers out.